Well, good morning. Good morning. So appreciative of having this opportunity to be able to talk to you guys a little bit about certain passions on my life and in my heart, and what kind of God reveals to me in certain seasons and certain patterns of our life. And this is going to be no different. So first of all, I want to welcome any first-time guest here to Local Canton. If this is your first time, you are definitely a guest of honor. And we recognize that sacrificing part of your weekend is a big deal. And so we do not take that for granted. So we are so excited that you are here. But if you've been here a while, you know we've been trekking through this lesson series called He Gets Us. And so really what we've been talking about over the past few weeks is the fact that Jesus has this incredible empathy for his people. And we don't normally kind of like to look at Jesus as empathizing with certain things that we live like and do and represent ourselves like, the attitudes that we have, the emotions that we carry. We don't like to attach Jesus to that. And the reason why we don't like to attach Jesus to that is we don't like to think of him as any sort of spiritual connections to our flaws. Because usually our emotions and usually our character at times, and sometimes our integrity is a little bit suspect based on the decisions that we make. And so to connect Jesus to that and understand that he really understands and gets us, sometimes as believers it's difficult for us to do. But then we're reminded that he is not a high priest that fails to understand or empathize with our weaknesses, but he's actually one that's been tempted in every way in Hebrews chapter 4. And to think about Jesus in that way, knowing that he understands emotional breakdown, he understands hurt, he understands loneliness and abandonment, he even understands temptation in the highest realm with the exception of not falling into sin, gives us this understanding of not only is he this supreme, ultimate, messianic being, but he's also extending the hand of a father to people that need somebody to understand what brokenness and broken down emotions looks like. And he is extending his hand for that in our lives over and over again, which gives us the understanding that maybe he really does get what's going on inside of me. So I have to, if you were here last month or 2 months ago, whenever it was that I was able to teach last time, I told you guys that I feel like I've been with you long enough to extend confessions. Well, you're about to have number 2. So bear with me. I know if you were here last time, I confessed my ridiculous love and passion for sneakers and how it's an ultimate addiction. So confession number 2, because we're at a comfort level now. Confession number 2 is I actually am very much a Scrooge. I don't like Christmas, all right? And let me explain to you why. And I know we just started school and everyone's like, one day at a time, Adam, but let's think about it for a second. It won't be long till you're staring down the gun of Christmas, and so it's right around the corner, so let's talk about Christmas for a minute. I'm a Scrooge. So let me confess to you as to why I'm a Scrooge. It's not like I have a disdain for Christmas. I understand the beauty behind it, and there are certain parts to Christmas that I appreciate, and there are certain parts that, traditionalism that I really value. But at the same time, I have to blame my parents for this, and they're in the room, so everybody look at them and make them shamed. Okay? All right. So I have to blame my parents for this, and this is why. This is why I'm a Scrooge. So I grew up in a home where my father was a worship and music pastor. And so I'm not exaggerating here when I say come September 1st, our house is blaring ridiculously nauseous Christmas music over and over and over and over. And so every time now, in my life now, every time Christmas rolls around, whenever I hear that first bell or whatever that first note is that I know it's a Christmas song, I immediately get on my knees and pray for the fast arrival of December 26th. So it's the truth, 100% true. But there's actually another reason why I struggle a little bit with Christmas. And all you parents in the room can certainly identify with this. All you parents recognize that in that moment where you have a son or a daughter just tearing apart a package and they are going out of their skulls ridiculously excited for that moment because this is the one thing that they've been hoping for the last 12 months or however long it's been, they go out of their minds crazy. I can't believe it, Mom, you came through. Right? Just out of their skulls, and that lasts for about 12 seconds until that item gets thrown in the corner and they're ready for the next experience. I have a really, really hard time with that. It's something inside of me that's just, I have to do everything I can to keep from ruining the experience that my child is having because I want to go outside of my skull in rage. because it's so frustrating. And here's why. Here's why. This is no blame to our children, all right? This is the way that our culture has built into us. We are ingrained with the idea and the mentality that says, make sure we are not living in the rear view. We are always looking for the next experience out the windshield. The next thing, the next moment in your life, you are certainly just clawing your way to whatever it is that Jesus has in store for you. Whatever it is next, whatever that moment might be, you are just anxiously anticipating whatever it is that Jesus has laid out for you. And you want to get there. You want to arrive. You want to get to the next moment. And see, with most things in our lives, that makes a whole lot of sense, especially with the mistakes that you and I make. We don't want to stick in those moments. We don't want to have stale feet in those moments. We don't want to be in quicksand in those moments. We don't want to stay in that situation where we're constantly reflecting on the mistakes that you and I make. And actually, that's biblical. Philippians chapter 3 says, forgetting what is behind and pressing towards what is ahead. So that makes a whole lot of sense for us, but hold on a second. Contextually speaking, that's referencing fully repented sin. Not a blessing or provision given to you by God. It's a huge difference. Getting past something that was broken inside of you, or a tragic mistake that you might have made, or a big uh-oh that you experienced in your life that you told yourself you would never do, or something that poured out of your mouth that you said you would never say. Those moments, of course, Jesus is looking at us and says, lay it down at my feet and let it go and move forward. But when God's hand of provision is extended to you, sometimes he wants you to live in the moment. And we're so hungry for the next experience, the next gift, the next blessing, the next idea of provision, that we forget about what he just did. And that breaks my heart when it comes to Christmas. Because here we have this incredible anticipation for a moment, and we can't stay in the moment. We want what's next. And so I want to look at it, see what Jesus actually has to say about that. And he paints an incredible picture in Luke chapter 17. So I would encourage anybody that has a Bible with them or a Bible app, I would love for you to follow along with me in Luke chapter 17. Kind of paint the picture for you about what's going on here. This is something extremely important as far as understanding kind of where Jesus is in this moment as he's addressing these particular people that have kind of this outsider mentality. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But if you kind of go back all the way to Luke chapter 9, Luke chapter 9 is when we finally see what it is and why it is that Jesus has arrived in this place where he's going to encounter these specific people. And why that's significant is this, because if you go back all the way to Luke chapter 9, just several chapters prior, Jesus tells us that he is about to embark on Jerusalem. All right, he's way up in the northern territory, and he's telling us he's about to head south into Jerusalem. Now, some of us, if we're maybe new to the Bible, new to church, that first of all, if that's you, so glad that you are here. All right, you are in such a safe place. So glad that you are here. But if you're not really familiar with Bible, not really familiar with church, to understand why Jesus is telling us very, very just kind of in your face, hey, I am heading to Jerusalem, he actually kind of puts a little caveat to that. And it says, because it's about my time where I'm going to extend into heaven. So we know that Jesus is in preparation for his death. We know that his time is coming. And so he's about to head south and head into Jerusalem, where all of this stuff that, whether you're a church person or not, you understand most of the story of Jesus going to the cross and what that means. So he's about to embark on that incredible journey for all of us. And in Luke chapter 9, he says, I'm about to head to the place where I will be taken up into heaven to be with his Father. But it's not actually until Luke chapter 19, which we're going to fast forward in just a minute, in Luke chapter 19, where we actually see that take place. So here we have Jesus and his 12 on this incredible southward journey where he's about to take on the worst, most excruciating death known to the history of mankind. And so he's going through this journey. All right, we don't know exactly the time frame here. It's got to be a certain amount of time because if you look at the map, the distance is quite elaborate. And so he's going through this journey with his 12, and all along, he continues to teach into his 12. Nonstop. He continues to pour into his 12 lessons of life change, lessons of future glory, lessons of what it will look like to extend his church as we know it today. He's basically instilling incredible teaching into his 12 along the entire process and journey, knowing in the back of his mind exactly where he's going to and the purpose why he's going there. And he's extending this love and teaching ability into his 12 that are going to take the church as he built up and bring it forward, again, as you and I know it today as the New Testament church. And he's pouring into these people over and over again. And that's where we hear Jesus arriving here in chapter 17, and he's coming up to basically a national border. All right? Let's read chapter 17, verse 11, if you don't mind. Verse 11 says this in chapter 17 in the book of Luke. On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. Now stop right there for a second. On the outside, that looks extremely insignificant. Completely understand that. But if you're actually looking at a map, this is very significant. See, like I told you, Jesus is about to head south, and he's about to cross into a borderland. That borderland being Samaria. And again, if you're a church person, been in church for a while, understanding of the Bible a little bit, we understand what Samaria is, okay? We understand what Samaritans are, all right? Basically, it's kind of a mixed, just kind of cultures, mixed rituals, a blending of cultures and society to where they were looked at as if you were a Samaritan, you were outcasted because you basically didn't have pure bread. Okay? And so Jesus is about to enter into this borderland. And I got to thinking about this as I was studying this a little bit. It's like, why is it for the first time that I'm recognizing that Jesus spent a lot of time in borderlands? If you read his journey in the first 4 books of the New Testament, repeatedly you see Jesus wandering through borderlands. And I got to thinking about that for a second. It's like, Jesus, why is it that you send, like, your men, your people, the people that are extending your church and the people you're pouring into, and you're constantly kind of showing yourself as present in these borderland areas? There's got to be something there. And in this reference, obviously we know what's going on because the Samaritans are looked at as outsiders. They're looked at as like outcasts by the Israelites. And so he understands that they're already socially excluded. But along these borderlands, I'm thinking to myself, well, most of the time that you extend borders and cross over borders, there's some sort of tension. There's some sort of distance or disagreement or some sort of casting out based on who is on the other side of that borderland. And let me tell you something. This has absolutely nothing to in the direction of where we're going, but it has everything to do with the nature of Jesus. If we are in a place where we feel a little bit conflicted, confused, don't know which way to turn, don't know which side to take. We're questioning, we're evaluating, we're processing. The world says this, but I feel like I need to do this. And we're trying to make sense of what it is that Jesus has for me in this world. Let me tell you something, that's where Jesus resides. He loves your borderland. He wants to be a part of it. He wants to extend his hand to it. He wants to love and walk with you through it. Your confusion, your breakdowns, your disgust, your fatigue, the messed up culture, that the messages that are coming, infiltrating your mind and your head, and you're trying to make sense of it. It's like, is this me? Is this not me? And just trying to make sense of the world, and Jesus lives there. He travels there. He cares about that confusion. And again, I don't care that's not the direction where we're going. I don't care. You need to know the nature of Jesus. That's who he is. And if you feel like you're wandering in a borderland with confusion or not sure if this Jesus guy is for you, let me tell you, that's where he lives. That's where he lives. Look at verse 12. Verse 12 says, "And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance." Okay, again, pause there for a second. Couple major things going on here. Jesus obviously is approaching a village. All right, we don't know what it's called. We don't know how many people are there. He's just approaching a village, and all of a sudden he sees these 10 men that are outside the village. That's significant. The reason why these 10 men are outside of the village is because they're not welcome within their village because they have leprosy. All right? So the ultimate cast-off is these 10 men. where they're not allowed inside a village. And something else that's significant about them being outside of the village is they're completely 100% dependent on other people. They can't go inside of that village. They can't till crops. They can't take care of livestock. They can't take care of families. They have to stay outside of that village, and hopefully somebody within their family or somebody within their social structure will take care of their needs as they're extended outside of their village. You want to talk about being an outcast? So what it is about this leprosy stuff? What's significant about that? Why is that important for us to know? Because if you're familiar with the Bible, you see it pretty frequently. This disease that we don't typically see today, it's actually called something else today. It actually still exists in its minor form. But the relevancy behind it is this. When somebody was conducted or somebody kind of took this incredible disease, it was a skin disorder, and it was immediately referred to as you being unclean by religious law. So you had to be outcasted. Right? The culture and the law extended its arm to you where you don't need to come any closer because you've been inflicted with something. There must be something else spiritually unnatural going on in your life to cause that infliction upon your life. So you don't belong here. You're not a part of this. You're not welcome here because of something that they contracted. And so here you have these 10 men that are extended outside of this village, and Jesus sees them. Jesus recognizes them. Let me tell you something else about the nature of Jesus. You don't go unnoticed in the eyes of Jesus. You are not unnoticed. And he pauses along his journey of teaching and instructing his 12 and senses that there's a need within these 10 individuals where he and only he can intercede. And watch what happens. Verse 13. I'm going to back up just a little bit and repeat. And as he entered a village, verse 12, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance. And they lifted up their voices saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy upon us. Other translations say, Jesus, have pity upon us. So 10 lepers, outcasted by society because of something they contracted. Jesus recognizes that they're visible, they're present, and Jesus also wants to be present. You are noticed. I'm with you. And what is it that they do? They extend their voices to a high capacity. We're going to come back to that. They raise their voices. We don't know the distance between them physically that Jesus was standing to the 10. We have no idea what that looked like as far as how far away physically Jesus was. But they rose their voices in recognition of who he was. And in that moment, in that incredible moment, we see this expression given to people in their weakness. Jesus, have mercy / pity upon us. Why do I care so deeply about what they just said? They didn't ask to be healed. They just said, have pity on me. It's fascinating to me. You're telling me that you've been outcasted by your world. You've been outcasted by society. You've been outcasted by your loved ones. And the first thing out of your mouth, recognizing the Savior of the world, is be pitiful to me. Not Jesus, heal and restore me. But that's not what they said. Jesus, please, in your compassion, recognize me. See me. In my brokenness, in my disdain, in my disgust, in my outcasted self, see me. It's fascinating. I know what I would have been claiming. Fix me. Restore me. Make me whole again. Make me usable again. Let me be worth something. But no, Jesus, just see me. Watch this. Go and show yourselves to the priest in 14b. And as they went, they were cleansed. Now, why is it that Jesus sent them off to the priest? Again, referencing Old Testament law again. There's only one person that can deem somebody that has leprosy as being clean and being ready to go back into society, and that was the priest and only the priest. Jesus recognizes this. Jesus recognizes he has all that incredible power within the snap of his finger, but he sends them off based on religious law. He says, you need to show yourself into the priest. Show yourself to the priest. But hold on a second. He prefaces being cleansed with going to the priest first. They weren't healed yet. They weren't restored yet. They weren't brought back to civilization yet. They weren't made whole yet. And he says, go show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, he cleansed them. As they were on their journey, Jesus showed up in a way that they didn't even ask for. As they recognized that, oh, I know what the law says. I understand why I'm going to go see this priest. Do you think it's possible? Can you imagine the bickering going on between these 10 men? And we don't even know how many were actually Samaritans and how many were actually Jews. We have no idea. We're going to see here in a minute there's at least one Samaritan. But we don't know how many Samaritans are there out of the 10. We don't know how many Jews are there in the 10. All we know is it was borderland. It could have been 5-on-5. It could be 9-1. We have no clue. But I guarantee you they're having conversations with each other, asking themselves, what in the world do you think is about to happen to us? We're going to the priest. He's the only one that can regard us as being clean. As a matter of fact, we can't even be in the same presence of him unless we are clean. So what does this mean for us? We didn't ask to be healed. We asked to be seen and recognized and know that we matter. And as they were going, Jesus heals them. Jesus restored what they didn't even ask for. Jesus showed up in a way that was supreme and mighty and sovereign, in a way that they didn't even ask for or request. And watch the response. And as they went, they were cleansed. Verse 15. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, he turned back, praising God. Catch this again. I told you to put a pin in that one. With a loud voice. See, we already saw that. We saw that once. It's Jesus. That's him. Oh my word. What are we going to do? What should we ask for? What should we say? Should we tackle him? No, we got leprosy. He probably hate us then. What are we going to do? That's Jesus. And all of a sudden, all of them, all 10 of them are restored and healed. And one turns around. One turns around and continues the loud voice. This time with utter praise and passion and love, recognizing the healer of the world. Recognizing that everything that they heard about him was really him. And he turns around and he comes back toward Jesus, the healer, and praises in a loud voice. And see, church, this right here is again where I'm stuck. It's where I'm stuck with my world and yours. To where the things that we get ramped up about is that next gift that I could tear apart. Or the things that we get ramped up about is the next experience that we think we're supposed to have. Or the things we get so excited and loud about are the things that are only there for a moment. And the things that we get so pumped up and jived up about are the things that actually end up sometimes hurting us. And yet the things that Jesus has already done in you were silent. The things that he's already done in your life, we don't want to shout that out. Because we want whatever's next. And we don't know exactly what those 9 other people are doing. We don't know if they're continuing on to the priest. It doesn't say. We don't know if they look at each other and say, hey, we're good now. Let's go. And they head off in all 9 different directions. Who knows? What we do know is this. One turned around and recognized what Jesus already did instead of wondering what's around the corner for them next. We don't live that way. We don't live that way. See, our lives, unfortunately, reflect kind of what the unfortunate culture and world and society that's inflicting messages upon you. And that message is this. How much we can't wait for the next promotion. And what happens when you get that next promotion? Come on, guys, this is easy. We do whatever we got to do to get the next one. Am I lying? What happens when that baby finally arrives in your family? Now, maybe not the men in the room, but hey, guess what happens about 2 weeks after that? When are we going to plan for number 2? That's what we do. Jesus arrives, and we wonder what's on his agenda next. Instead of being so prayerful, so passionate, so incredibly thankful of what he's already done. We've forgotten about that. We've forgotten about a blessing of a child. We've forgotten about, he gave me this raise. Thank you, Jesus. We forgot about the car is actually fixable. We forgot about all of those things in our lives, and we're like, yeah, but what does he have for me next? See, that's about repentant sin, not God's hand of provision. Stay in the moment. Stay in the moment. Be thankful. Be proud of what Jesus has done in you and that he chose you to experience it. Gratitude, pouring out of ourselves, just like this 1 out of 10 shouted with a loud voice, look what he has done. Not what are you going to do for me next? Watch how this finishes up. And he fell on his face, verse 16, at Jesus' feet. You talk about a posturing of gratitude. When's the last time you and I did that? Fell on his face in a posture of thanksgiving. Praising God right at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, watch this, guys. Were not 10 cleansed? What happened to the other 9? See, this is kind of a confusing little verse. Because sometimes it's easier for us to see Jesus in that situation and wonder, well, is Jesus ignoring the recognition of himself in this one? Here's how I see it. Here's how I see it. In that scenario, Jesus kind of looks like he wants to be recognized by more than just this one. But the truth of the matter is, he wants to get out of the way, and so his Father is recognized by all. He's not looking for the fame. He wants it for the Father. Everything points to him. And if you're in this room and you don't know who Jesus is, some of this is like, whoa, right? Some of this is like, that's heavy. But here's the truth of the matter. Even if you're in this room and you don't know who Jesus is, there's something so practical and something so relevant and something so meaningful, even outside of the biblical text. Hearing that, you know what? Sometimes I need to pause. You know what? Sometimes I need to extend gratitude in a moment. You know what? Sometimes I need to recognize that I was in worse shape about a minute ago, and now I'm in better shape. Maybe I should just think about how I've just been blessed in this situation for a second. See, even if you kind of take out the biblical reference, if you're not a Bible person, there's something so valuable to that. But if you are in this room and you know who Jesus is, and you're trying to follow after him with your life, and you're reading this text with me, because let me tell you something. What he said is way better than anything I could ever say. This is so good. This is so good. This is way better than anything I could ever think of or anything he could ever bless me with coming out of my mouth. This is so good. Because church, you and I know what it feels like to walk in a borderland. You and I know what it feels like to feel rejection or abandonment or confusion. You and I know what it means to be fatigued by the world. You and I know what it means to hear messages in your ear that you know aren't true for you, and you're trying to make true sense of all of it. And you and I are walking in a borderland right now, and we're wondering, and we're kicking the tires. Jesus, can you do something for me in this moment? Can I be seen and recognized? And can you have pity on me in this situation? And Jesus will. Because you are seen. You are recognized. You are cherished. You are so valuable. And he doesn't ignore. But you and I as church people, you and I as Christians, you and I as followers of the way, we need to recognize also that Jesus has done so much for you already. Do you still shout from the rooftops over those things? Do we still praise God for maybe the one child in your household? Do we still offer thanksgiving and gratitude that he landed you in that job that took care of your needs financially? Do we still give Jesus his ample due, what already has happened in your life, as opposed to what you want him to do next? Is our posture on our knees in thanksgiving? Because our love for Jesus, our response to Jesus, is solely centered and should solely be centered upon what he has already done, as opposed to what do you want him to do. And it started with the cross, and it ends with the cross, because that was enough. And if you don't know Jesus, see, what happened was his life on the cross, his death on the cross, his resurrection from the cross is so that you could be seen. In your brokenness, in your isolation, in your abandonment, in your hurt, in your pain, he went to the cross to see you and put the repentant sin behind you. So windshields are beautiful. When you're moving past something that you know distanced yourself from Jesus, windshields should have a big pause button when you know that he's arrived in you.